Hello, all, and welcome to another episode of the Market Pulse presented by Smart Touch. I'm your host, Aaron Fichera, and today I have a special discussion around prop tech and the future trends in real estate. Today, I have our founder and CEO, Robert Coes, and John Cecilian, the co-founder and CEO of Cecilian Partners, one of the leading prop techs in the industry. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here, Aaron.
Thanks for
So,
joining us, Joe.
with Cecilian Partners, you guys have been around for quite some time. Some of your staple products is around construction management software, 3D plat mapping, and other really, really interesting prop tech that we're going to get into during this conversation. But for those that haven't been following us or kept an eye on, we've worked pretty closely with Cecilian over the last couple of years, and we've really kind of gotten to know each other more intimately. But it kind of started pretty funny with a story. Robert, I know we talked about this before the show. How'd we get hooked up with Cecilian? How'd you guys meet?
Great question. Well, we happen to be the only full service marketing and advertising agency that also offers their own CRM and marketing automation platform. And having that inherently in our DNA, as an agency, we get to advise our clients on other technologies that we can interoperate with that will enrich what we're bringing to the table. And we haven't been in the business for 14 years, have created a number of great relationships. And so this one is funny because we have been the agency of record for what is now today, or actually it was our first implementation, Mindy, a master plan community in New Braunfels, Texas. And so as the agency of record, we make recommendations. And I remember it's clear as daylight, this is about 2.5 years ago. We were looking at the client, really, we had gone down to the final legal work because they were really gung-ho on introducing a kiosk at their welcome center as part of their experience. And back then, they were still really pricey, and it was close to a six-figure endeavor to introduce that. And so it was a line item budget. We were talking about it. And I remember talking to the client as we were reviewing the budget and looking at this massive spreadsheet that he had, in which in there is how he managed the entire lot inventory. And I said, hey, man, hey, there's solutions for that out there. And as a matter of fact, I had an opportunity to meet a business development agent that John had in his company and had demoed it and was impressed. And I just kind of left that in my back pocket because part of our role. And so when this came up, I said, Max, you ought to check this out. And about a month later, I get a call. And he's like, hey, this is the accountant. And he said, you won't believe this. They've actually reallocated the budget to Cecilian. And they are actually committed, and they have started onboarding. Hey, whatever the kiosk. I said, well, great. We're going to get a tremendous, tremendous opportunity to create more value with the data of these two technologies together. And hence is the introduction to John's company, Cecilian.
Well, before we kind of pick off there, because that gets into a whole world of integration and cooperation. John, I always start off with guests on the show. How'd you get into the real estate industry?
Oh, that's an easy one. So I grew up in this industry, frankly. So my family had a true ad agency, a strategic marketing consultancy that my mother Kathleen led and had in market for probably 30 years. And now she's more of an independent consultant or advisor for certain people. And my
Wonderful.
professional career was a little bit different, but I grew up in and around knowing what an NPC was, knowing who home builders were, knowing kind of the pain points and challenges of these organizations as sort of the son at the dinner table, if that makes sense. And one of the things and one of the I guess foundations of why I came into this industry after spending almost 20 years in retail is that I really wanted to bring a lot of the retail strategic thinking of customer experience, innovation, data management to production home building and community development. And that's, I think, really why I'm here and what we're trying to serve and who we serve.
Excellent. I mean, that's great to have that baseline knowledge and passion for the industry. So how do you go from the sun at the table to running multimillionaire prop tech company like Cecilian Partners that's just cutting edge and always innovating? Where do you make that jump from retail to?
Yeah. So in my career retail, I had really, really fortunate luck working with some incredible founders and executives. And the roles that I had in the retail firms that I worked for were big and important roles to those companies. Whether it was a director of retail overseeing, 30 or 40 locations to being a head of retail overseeing sort of a national footprint. I was privileged to have sort of the view of very senior leaders and what they think that and how businesses should be run and how their products should be sold. And I took a lot of that thinking and gleaned it really into the basis for my company. More importantly, I've hired really smart people that offset my shortcomings so we can do great things. Whether it's people in technology or people in strategy or people in marketing, it's important to me that you surround yourself with really talented folks and allow them to sort of come in your kitchen and cook, for lack of a better analogy. And I've been very lucky, over the last 5+ years to have a really strong team, all committed to the category, all adding value every single day. And so I think that's part of the story, but an important one is our people.
And one of the dominant products out of Sicilian is XO. And for our audience, you kind of want to give a 30,000 view of what is XO?
Totally. So the way that I want the audience to think about Cecilian Partners is we're the residential operating system for the category. And wonderful companies like Smart Touch can bolt on to that residential operating system, and we can work together in every single way. That's part of the partners in our company. The original product that is our flagship product is called the XO. And the XO effectively is an ERP solution that marries experiential data, the X, with operational data, the O, and allows builders and developers to be streamlined in how they do business. There really isn't a traditional ERP solution today. For those that don't know what an ERP is, that's the acronym is Enterprise Resource Planning. Effectively, it's your single source of truth, right? Another air quotes for today, where you have sort of an environment that is sort of catching all information, whether it's a great CRM product like Smart Touch, or it's Microsoft Excel, or it's ArcGIS data, and being able to sort of visualize that in sort of a singular view. And that matters because, well, too often, all of these organizations buy all of these products that don't really bolt on or work together. It's highly manual, highly time sensitive, time suck, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And our goal and vision on the XO is to bring all that together and get the most out of your data.
Well, and I know we're going to talk a bulk about technologies and integration, but, perfect segue to Robert, to yourself. We talk about bolting on the XO. So what was that process? We talked about a month later getting hooked up with John and Cecilian. What went into it?
A great question. It really, as a marketer, it started with changing the paradigm because we've been in business for 14 years, and prior to XO and even a couple of implementations that we did, like the norm when you marketed a master plan community and you offered homes or the builders was basically a paragraph and a picture of the builder and a link to their site. And that was the experience. And so, hundreds, millions of dollars spent on advertising and marketing to sell the lifestyle of that master plan, but never really offer the end user the ability to shop, because a lot of people take for granted as being in an industry that we know the brands, but the most new home buyers don't know the brands. They are falling in love with a location and a master plan. And so that aspiration to bring that experience to our master plan community providers was a big hook for Smart Touch. And in the fact that they were into interoperating data and sharing of that experience, because we participate at the front end, right? We are responsible for filling that sales funnel, that lead funnel. And quite often when we work with a master plan, the transaction with the end user occurs at the builder level. And we don't get to match back. We don't get to validate that the advertising and marketing decisions that were made actually did work all the way to make a difference in the end user decision. And so XO facilitated that and brought that with their product to us to where today we actually have 4 mutual clients that we're their agency of record, that we facilitate that experience. And it's, to me, it's revolutionary when it comes to master plan community websites. It now sets a new norm, right? Like now you are expected to facilitate that experience.
Well said.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. In previous shows, it's really it starts with a search and then you're landing on that website and that's your first experience. Which kind of, Robert, to your point, it gets into our larger discussion about technological synergies because going into these Veramindi, going into the other four, it took a lot of overhaul. It took a lot of cooperation, communication, and integration between multiple systems. Maybe 10, 20 years ago, softwares were kind of in a silo. Now it's how do we integrate them or have an all-in-one encompassing system. So, what should, this is more of an open for, John or Robert, if you guys want to tackle this, but what should users of these type of technologies, CRMs, platforms, what should they be mindful of going into these process where you're going away from, okay, I'm going to do it on a 300 column spreadsheet to the most sophisticated tech. How do we overcome those obstacles? What should they be mindful of?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say if the client is looking for a solution that can help them get over those obstacles, they shouldn't be charged with doing that work themselves, right? They should have a professional that comes in and onboards their data from start to finish that allows them to have sort of an ability to get the most out of the work they've already done. It's too difficult to imagine a client to really even begin that work. That would be so out of their bailiwick. We would never want them to do that because A, they're going to make mistakes, and B, they're not going to understand how to kind of connect point A to point B. And I think that's the most important function there. And kind of what we do, we have a whole team dedicated to implementation and customer success. And within that rhythm, we onboard our customer and we ingest all of their data. That could be legacy PDFs, that could be Excel spreadsheets, that could be, literally, we've seen it all. It could be Word docs, it could be a lot of things. And we take that and manually go through it, clean it, dedupe it, make sure that there's not too much error. And then we get to load that into the platform. And I think the beauty of how technologies go together, to your point, Aaron, in and around how it used to be 10 or 15 years ago, no doubt, like if you're a modern software firm, you have to be able to have an open API environment that allows you to sort of connect and work with companies like SmartTouch that allow you to have two modern ways of bringing together data and a user experience and making that come to life. And one of the things I think Robert touched on quickly, but needs to be driven home, is the importance of the customer experience, which is why me personally was so attracted to the SmartTouch story, right? Is this dynamic of the focus of the customer journey and what happens to the home buyer in that journey, right? It's 100% true that we're so in it every day that even language like plan elevation or understanding lot fit or understanding the size of those lots is our vernacular. The average home buyer has no idea what we're talking about when we talk about all the different elevations to look at, using the language elevation to describe the facade or the front of a home, right? And I think that's an important piece, is that if I were the client, I want all that to be painless. Let me give us your data. Let's get it right. Let's focus on the user experience. And make sure that our customer, who's the aspiring home buyer, has a great experience in the front end, and then we can understand the data points in the back end. And that's, I think, a great analog of how my firm and Robert's firm go together so well. Does that make sense?
It does. Well, Robert, to that point, being a vendor partner and working with others, anything to kind of piggyback or provide more color?
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to that decision, right? Okay, I'm gonna bring inventory and home shopping onto the developer website. And the number one challenge is, how in the hell am I gonna keep that updated? I want no part of it. Right? That was Can't respond the last 10 years till a solution like XO. And John said it right. He's the end all of all this data. And so if all the builders are putting in all their data there, and they're committed, because that's the number one thing that for John's product to really work, he's got to have developers that have builder commitments to put in the data and keep it up to date and make it enrich, right? But if you have that, then yeah, he's got a solution that, for us, we were asked to do that. That's why I kind of was curious about. We were asked to do that. Can you do that? I can even start to think about starting to do that. 5 years ago, they asked that, and now he's got a solution that I would call is pretty much turnkey, right? Besides the onboarding. The onboarding is the heavy lifting, but to build it from scratch, you've got it.
Right.
So to me, that's the key thing. If you're a master plan community developer and you have hesitated in the past because of having to overcome that challenge of managing the data, EXO is a solution, but it also takes, it takes alignment with your builders to the commitment of the data.
Are you telling,
kind of takeaway.
are you telling me that there's people listening are not going to step away here with a silver bullet solution and the clouds are going to part, the sun's going to shine, and everything's going to be beautiful? You have to hold people accountable and entering in information and data in the system.
Do you know that I had a client the other day tell me that all the information in Salesforce has to be right because it's in the Salesforce? And I was like, how do you think the information got into Salesforce? And I said, that's part of the challenge, right? Is that too often our industry, you just said it, Aaron, on the silver bullet analogy, which is spot on, thinks that when you buy a larger enterprise solution like a HubSpot or like a Salesforce, because of its sort of like status, if you will, or what it's known as, it's going to work by itself. You just, download it and wham, bam, it's going to work. And I have this really kind of silly but true analogy around software as a service, right? And the concept is that when you buy software, you're buying a puppy. And that puppy needs to be fed, loved, and probably crate trained and potty trained and all that stuff. But if you leave that puppy in the crate and you don't train it, and you don't nourish it, the puppy's going to die. The same goes with software. The software is a living, breathing thing that requires training, requires attention, requires work. And I think too often our industry would rather load things into Excel spreadsheets sometimes than just utilizing the platform by which they're trained on. And I think that's the other side of software as a service, SaaS primarily, that we don't talk enough about, is that the focus in SaaS is as much service as it is software. And that if you as an organization are not willing to be hand in glove with your client to ensure that every step of the way, the issues that they have in and around using the product or not using the product isn't remedied in short order, you will fail. The customer will fail and it won't be good. And I think one of the things we take pride on as a company is our customer success team and being readily available. Our average response time is under 30 minutes when someone files a ticket. And we love that. We have 170 customers, 2,400 end users today, and we're able to maintain that kind of response time because we take it so seriously. So, yeah.
That's absolutely amazing.
Very impressive.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, it's good. People work hard, and I love that about my team.
Well, and we kind of touched on it a little bit in our conversation here, is around just trends and changing perspectives, changing habits, which, we talked about even just in software, but we're also talking about people. So I kind of want to, with this new technology and these new integrations, what trends do you all feel the audience needs to be aware of when it comes to this technology, the buyer's journey, how these systems enhance their already existing systems?
I have a different take. My take might be more negative. I don't know if Robert has a different take. So the worry that I have about our industry is this always searching for the headline, right? 7 years ago, everyone talked about AI and IBM Watson and how it's going to be the new normal. And that has kind of fallen into the wayside behind the curtain. And IBM Watson still exists, but not in the way that we thought. 2 or 3 years ago, everybody was talking about buying and selling real estate on the metaverse.
Metaverse.
Go to how wacky that is and how not real it is. Now, is crypto real? Yes. Are NFTs real? Yes. Is blockchain going to be a new way for certain industries to get the most out of sort of data and technology? 100%. But in our industry, the new trend that everybody's excited about is obviously AI and understanding large language models and how those things come together. And what I keep trying to tell everyone, I'm speaking on 2 community development councils next week in New York City at ULI. CDC Silver and CDC Black, talking exactly about AI adoption and what that means. And my fear is that we're not willing to get our data house in order before we even contemplate using these sort of advanced tools, right? You have to do the work. You have to take a look at what and where and how you're collecting data, right? So if you're using an incredible product like Smart Touch, and you're not managing the top end of your funnel the right way and allowing that data to be organized the right way, you're never going to be able to get the benefit of sort of the advanced technologies that other industries are looking at, right? Because the concept of a large language model, it's predicated, the query is predicated on the known data sets that are there.
Mhm.
And so if those known data sets aren't right, you're going to have issues like you've seen in the marketplace cross industry, right? And so I know it's not a sexy or fun answer, but I'm telling you, this industry is sitting on more data than the average. And we just need to do our work to get that corrected and get away from manual data entry and try to find ways to keep things collected and organized. That's my hot
So,
take on that.
so I guess, are you saying that by industry, we spend a lot of time searching for the shiny object and not really work on the foundation of data and process?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds negative. You're right. I mean,
No, no,
Can
it's,
I,
I mean, I
sorry
mean,
for
it's human
interrupting. Can I
habit,
add
but
something
go.
to
Of
to
course.
John's statement?
Of
Like,
course.
hey, today CRM adoption, right? Like I've been singing that song for freaking 14 years. CRM adoption is still in most organizations only 40% participation. Can you believe it or not? So today, when we talk about like data sets and what Smart Touch is going to do with CRM AI, I can tell you I got a lot of marketing data, all kinds of automated data from the marketing department. But when it comes to like a data from end to end, from beginning to end, that has sales participation and recording of transactions, just notes, right? Just notes. We only got 40% participation. So only about 40% of my clients really leverage those tools to actually do something with the data. And so I think that's what John is saying is like, there's not just, there's participation, there's data standards, I think, that are at the center of this before like we just start using it like at liberty
Right.
and then trying to rely on it to be valid data, right? Trying to rely and then go out with a flag that says it's real.
The other like for your business, it makes 10 out of 10 cents to have an AI function all day. Obviously, that makes sense. I'm talking about if you're a builder or developer, it doesn't make sense. They don't even like to talk about pricing. I mean, there's just things they don't want to openly share that's required to openly share when you are trying to get the most out of artificial intelligence. I also want to push it back to the customer or client too to say, hey, what's the business purpose? What's the use case, right? I don't understand it yet. Why our industry? I mean, it's all the rage on the MPC side, believe it or not. It's what I'm hearing. Some home builders are talking about it. Really, what they're doing is just sort of reskinning what a normal sort of text chat bot would be. If you go onto the homepage of a builder site, right, and you want to query whatever. I mean, sure, you can call that AI. That's fine. But like, if your inventory isn't in order and you're looking for something, it might not be right. Like, that's what I'm getting at. I just think that there's a lot of work to be done before we embrace new technologies from the lens of the builder or the developer, not a digital agency like Roberts. Rather, I'm talking about pure play builder, pure play developer.
So that's, as a matter of fact, that's our participation in AI. Aaron has led our integration of AI into our company, and it's really been across our operation.
Sure.
Right. And Aaron, I just wanted to ask you to give you a turn and ask you a question and tell them how we're integrating AI, because we just finished coming back from IBS, in which one of our leading AI experts, our SEO expert Eric, took sold out two sessions of 500 people were in that auditorium that day to listen to that. And can you just share what some of our insights are from our point of view?
Yeah. It started a year ago when everybody was on, the wave of ChatGPT, and Robert came in and said, "Hey, I want you to figure out what's going on." So we formed a committee, internally called Skynet, as a tongue-in-cheek joke. But over time, we kind of created a committee and we openly talked about how do we responsibly and ethically incorporate in the workflow, from being the COO, I want to figure out how I can enhance and better the workflow of my team. So that's first and foremost, as well as provide more value to our clients indirectly. So from there, John, right to your point, you're speaking from the same hymn book when it comes to data, because what language, the language models are based on data sets. And if the data is not clean, then your output is not going to be clean. So we really took a lot of time around archiving, to your point, brand, these data sets. What's the unique selling propositions? What is the price points? What is their brand voice? What is their brand colors? What are the best, which ads serve the best, which demographic, what buyer personas, what are the frequently asked questions? We basically created this whole data set per client with the intent that this makes our teams better, because they now have, it cuts down on the onboarding time, cuts down on, query, which not many people think of that. Like, we all have Dropboxes, we all have this, but if I can,
Right.
I can bring on an account coordinator and say, hey, I need you to learn this development that's coming up. It now, these individuals now have the ability to ask questions, say, okay, tell me about this development, tell me about Barramundi, tell me its history. Not only will it pull from, what the internet can provide it, but also all the data and information.
Love
And that
Yeah.
way it's readily available. But it
That
does
makes-
get back to your point, clean data.
So we're starting to do that with all of our marketing data as a first place for construction. So the value today is not in constructing it, it's in organizing it.
Yep.
And that's the
Yep.
first thing that we recognize is like, that's where you could create value as an agency is,
Yeah.
okay, we came up with ideas, but organizing it.
I love that. That's well said on that. Organizing is a great use of thinking. A good adjective to describe what's required. I think organize. I might use that next week, actually.
And it's not the sexiest thing, like you said.
It's
Going
not.
in there,
People want to hear this stuff and they get all
they want
fired
to hear
up.
profitability, productivity,
Yeah.
that AI is going to replace everything. No, it's a machine learning.
But that's
and
the
it's
problem, right? Is
data.
those ubiquitous statements they all say. I was like, but what's it going to replace? You know what
And
I
that-
mean? Like, that's like in our industry. We could talk about robotics and we could talk about automotive and hospitality and aviation, like different. I'm talking about residential real estate. Like, I have a lot of good friends, some of whom are just really into the AI trend. They are like MIT alums, or they are true technologists, like they build shit. They're engineers, if you will. I didn't mean to swear on your podcast. Sorry about
No,
that. Sorry, I got excited. But what I'm getting
I'll tell the editors to bleep it out. Don't worry.
yes, they don't.
With
they're
AI.
trying to understand the value- They're trying to understand the value proposition of where a home builder would really want AI, right? And I think at the end of the day, that's the big question mark. Is like, if you're a home builder, where and how, when the customer journey is already sort of choppy, would you want to incorporate another layer of
Yep.
data? It should be the inverse. It should be like, hey, who's your CRM provider? Smart Touch Interactive. Got it. Okay. Go to them and have them help you on an AI strategy that will allow you to get the most out of maybe doing sort of different queries or running different automations that might get the most at the top end of your funnel, right? Because one of the things I think about all the time is, for us, one of the ways we're integrating AI is we've created sort of this, like, an open API. We've created this really kind of cool environment that allows us to query at speed, like, in Dallas, Fort Worth, list all the best selling 60-foot lots at dollars per square foot, right? So instead of like having to search or filter, it's a query, and then it just pops out by
Yeah.
developer, right? So we can see that in real time. But we have all that first party data. It's all there. It's all organized. We know it's accurate, right? And what I'm getting at and why that's important is that's where it could be interesting, right? If you're a national builder and your RVPs across the country are sharing information, you could glean some really good insights if you have an ERP solution or a great CRM solution to understand future predictive analytics, right? The ability to sort of forecast what has worked or what hasn't worked. You know what I'm saying? And I think too often that's missed. It's always like, let's look at yesterday, let's think about now, but they're never talking about down the road, in the sense of, okay, so if I've sold, I don't know, 25 homes this month, right? What is the average age of my home buyer? What's the average dollar per square foot? What's the average lot size? Those questions have to be done on the phone typically. I've rarely seen where things
Yeah.
are being queried in
Yeah.
a digital way, if that jives. So
No, and that's Yeah, that's what tickles me from an operation standpoint is that you can now see teammates ask these questions and be curious. And it really, I think a lot of people, as you go into AI and, we're now having to train, especially sales agents, to be more active in entering in data too. But
Yeah.
it makes the work, it makes it easier, but you have to figure out how to work it in your workflow and then encourage that curiosity and critical thinking.
I'll share with you a cool stat. So in manual data entry, there is a 1% error. And that doesn't seem that high, but what it gets really interesting is in what's called calibration processing. So like if you're a mathematician or an engineer and you're using lots of numbers, one of the things that begins to happen, and it's very much akin to what we see when people are inputting addresses in address fields,
Mhm.
start to get really tired as the numbers start to carry on, is that 1% manual all of a sudden becomes 1 out of 5. So it's a 20% variability. And if they're doing double entry, it could be as much as 40% variability over inputting more numbers. And so when I think about this is when you're inputting an address like examples, 5621 Old Easton Road, 5622 Old Easton Road, 56224, and all of a sudden that happens, right? In all of the stuff that we ingest, we see at least if there's 100 lines, at least 10 or 12 on average that are done that way, right?
Hmm.
So what's my point? My point is how could you know from like going from a plat map subdivision or neighborhood, how do you know what's right if you're not fact checking and looking for those human errors, which is very normal, right? And I think too often folks aren't doing sort of the check and recheck. It's one person charged with all of that entry, and it happens every single day. And when we get all those raw files, those errors are abundant, Aaron and Robert, in a real way. Like they are abundant. And that's, I think, where I'm kind of honing in is that we can't possibly take advantage of what's available until we get those errors corrected. And one of the things I've told our clients, well, hire a data analyst. They're not a fortune, right? There's someone that honestly, they're probably right at or right under a 6-figure baseline salary. They could do a world of help for these organizations that then would be so much better for a Smart Touch or Cecilian to have that type of person, because now what we're getting is correct, if that makes sense. Not
Yeah.
a wonderful marketing person that's also doing data entry, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Still transcribing. If you were to, here I go, I'm sorry, I'm soapboxing now. Tell me to shut up if I need to be shut up.
No,
If,
no.
if you go to, so Toll Brothers corporate office is right here in Horsham, Pennsylvania, 15 minutes from our offices. And if you were to secret shop their communities today, nothing's changed. Here's what I mean. You go online to one of their local communities, you make an appointment. And so now you, as the would-be prospect, have already been collected. First name, last name, email address, phone number,
Yeah.
reservation to go toward the model home, ACEs. You show up to that welcome center or model home, they still give you the 5x7 note card. And that 5x7 note card then also gets manually entered into some sort of database or like a master clipboard, right? 2 points of entry now, right? One, I've done digitally, and second. And I just did another secret shop. Part of the foundations of me founding my business 5 or 6 years ago was doing these sort of interactive sort of secret shops to kind of validate that. And I got
Mhm.
a thank you letter the other day it was, from 2 different people. And I was John Ceciliani, Ceciliani, and John Cecilian with an S. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what? Like, you have my information. My handwriting's not that bad. So what are you using to validate? I know it's a funny example, but it's a real one. And that we're
Yeah.
still doing
And
these
it and
kind of,
it can and it can taint the buyer experience too.
yes, that's all I'm getting at. And
Mm.
that's it. So you guys, you understand, you speak my language, you understand exactly what I'm coming at, but it's just at times it's funny that we're thinking about sort of this future thinking, future cast, but not thinking about how do I practically get the most out of the tools I have today. I think that's what's important. So,
Oh, well, you're gonna really love my wrap up question.
all right.
What
Hey,
are
hey,
the
hang on. I want to throw
Go-
a softball on the question that you had before you throw that one at him about the
Yeah.
future. Um, so going back to your question, Aaron, about like for Smart Touch and working with like the XO and Cecilian and some of the other solutions,
Mhm.
for us, we made a decision. We're marketers, we're experts at filling the lead generation and helping to create content to nurture those leads and providing the technology for both sales and marketing to manage it all the way till they're ready to make a commitment. And from that point, like, I've never built a house on my own. I've never been on the home builder side on my own. We are expert marketers. And so for that point, we made a commitment to be able to connect to the best solutions that there existed in the marketplace. And for us, like, it was like, hey, we want to be the iPhone and be able to connect to the best apps and then facilitate enrichment of that data, both for our users on the sales and marketing operation and the end user by really honing in on customizing the content that they receive. Right. So for us, like, our kind of next big deal, we've managed to integrate the capturing of leads to the XO experience and have been successful in integrating those maps across 4 websites, which all have microsites as well that we utilize for lead generation. And our next endeavor that we're looking is just closing the loop on those matchbacks, which we've already actually integrated with another solution that Cecilian has, which is their passport application that offers actually that infamous kiosk solution that this all started out with when I brought the smart suggestion to graduate from the spreadsheets. But that's us. And then everything that we can do in the future, having access to this data is where we see our priorities and really be staying to be the best that we can at marketing and being able to enrich the connections with our apps such as XO and Passport.
Well, that gets, I mean, a perfect into kind of a little bit on the future. What are some future collaborations? What are some future projects coming down the line that you guys can share with our audience?
Robert, you can go first if you want.
I just did.
Oh, yeah, touche. Sorry. The good thing is being recorded.
But I just did. That was about us, or you were asking just about us as a company?
No, in as a company collaboration as well as products. I know, John,
I see what you're saying.
Talked a little bit about land banking.
Products, Robert.
Yeah.
I think I see a lot of opportunity in what Smart Touch does. I think knowing how hard the category is, the fact that Smart Touch has been in business delivering the kind of products it does deliver the last 14 years is very meaningful to me and my co-founder, Phil. I could see closer synergies between Robert and me in the sense of being able to do some things that might be fun one-off projects or things down the line that could be really innovative and cool. Find ways to work together, even in other projects that maybe they're not yet in. One of the things that we keep struggling with here is we've got a great but old legacy CRM solution in BrightDoor that's about an 18-year-old product. It works fine, but there are some bells and whistles that Smart Touch has that I really like better. And so the idea is, how do great companies come together and work more in different ways and think about creative ideas to help the category? And that's what I get excited about, more of a macro look, not necessarily specific projects or products, but more workflows, strategies, things like that is where I get excited thinking about where Robert and I can intersect.
So, and Robert, I know,
Aaron, I was just going to add for us, Aaron, we have on the agency side 9 master plan communities, and we share 4 of them in common. And so we have really developed a core competency in a marketing program that is repeatable and works. And now with like the integration and visibility to the data of like what ended up happening at the end right now is really what I really get fired up about. And so for us, like, hey, what else can we do, right, to bring more value to master plan communities is what I really get excited about, because we love to get more work in that category.
Well, and John, I know before we hopped on, you were talking about potentially, and I know this can get into a whole nother segment, about an interesting product that are in the works for Cecilian around land banking.
Yeah. So we are working on a variety of different sort of special projects, not skunk works. They're in market and working as we speak, but stuff that's meaningful. One of which is a product we call Lot Vault, which is effectively a data management platform that brings together the ways in which builders and land bankers or lot bankers work in tandem. the idea is, again, digitizing certain data inputs that live today in Microsoft Excel or smart sheets or other sort of third-party type pieces that aren't necessarily meant to be queried in real time. And so the idea is, how can you create a product that allows two different groups of end users to kind of learn about what's happening in and around available lots, understanding lot takedown schedules, and a variety of other sort of things that go into all things land banking. Highly specific to our category, very much the wild, wild west in some ways, but ideally we're going to help these men and women get smarter about their business, have cleaner insights in their data, and go from there. But that's something that we've been working on pretty aggressively, and we'll see what happens in the coming quarter. There should be some big announcements down the pipe.
Excellent. Well, guys, I know as we're wrapping up today's show, I appreciate the knowledge, and I'd love to have both of you guys back on to talk about future endeavors as well as what's the trends in prop tech. As always, I like to sign off with, predictions or advice. So, Robert, I'll start with you. Any advice you have or predictions when it comes to tech and what to expect in 2024?
I'll come from the customer journey and home shopping experience. It's expected. Like, you're making the biggest purchase usually in your lifetime, and like the most comparable purchase today are going to be vehicles. And go shop around, any of the major brands. It just doesn't have to be Tesla, and see what you experience. And so then understand what an end user is experiencing as they're falling in love with the dream of owning a home in a specific location that has a master plan with all this vision that your marketing team has put together, only to get to that place and not know that you can't actually pick. You can't go in the store and actually pick what you want to take home. So to me, that is expected. That's my biggest takeaway is, if you're a master plan community developer and you've got density, and you've got builders working in your community, this experience is expected, and put it in your budget.
Well said. John, any advice you'd have for the audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think this year is a very, very important year for a variety of reasons. And I think for us, as we sort of continue to see what happens in and around housing, where and how interest rates will fall a little bit, I want to make sure that our builder and our developer clients get their data house in order to prepare for folks that have been actively looking for new homes. We'll be looking, I think, in the spring season more than ever here. We will see that. You've already seen some kind of preliminary data points from Zonda and such already. Going into next year, I think if we can get our data house in order today, we will be able to embrace other kinds of cool future tech. And within that, I think that's where it starts, is all with the data and doing the work to getting it where it needs to be. So
The drudgery of the numbers will set you free.
yeah, well said. Yeah. Good.
Well, gentlemen, I appreciate you taking some time and educating us about the new trends and technology. So thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
And for those that are listening, thank you again for joining us on the Market Pulse presented by Smart Touch, and we'll see you next time.